Hello and welcome to our channel, Tech Expert Tutorials. In this video, we're going to show you how to create a simple ETL job where we will FTP a CSV file from an external server, then create a new table on an SQL Server database, and finally load that CSV into the new table. Open Visual Studio, create a new project and select the Integration Services Project option. This will create the necessary framework we need to work on SSIS projects. Select the name and location again. You can save everything to the same directory if you prefer. Click Create. When the Create Project process finishes, you should see a package.dtsx file in design mode. Select Control Flow and drag an FTP task over to the window. Right-click and select Edit to modify this task. We will set up the FTP connection first. Select New Connection. Add the server name or IP address, enter our credentials, and then click on the Test Connection button to see if we have set this up correctly. Test was successful, so click on OK. Now we go to the File Transfer Properties tab and set up our operation to receive files. Then click OK. Next, we create a parameter or variable. Click on the small box on the upper right. We create a variable named local folder name. Scope is this package only. Change data type from int to string and set the value to our output folder. Make sure permissions are set for our user to access this directory. Go back to File Transfer and set up the local path. Set this to true and select our variable from the drop-down list. Set overwrite files to true, then set up our process to grab files ending in .csv in the root directory on the remote system. There is one file named temp.csv on the remote system. Click OK, and then click on Start to run this package. When the task is finished, if it runs successfully, you should see a debug output with 0 errors mentioned. Check our destination folder and we see the file there with a timestamp from 1 minute ago. The file contents look correct, so this means our SSIS job ran successfully. Now, we add a task to execute an SQL statement. We will create a new table and add the data from our CSV file. Drag the Execute SQL task over to the control flow form, then right-click and select Edit. In the editor, create a new connection under the SQL statement section. Here, we would see any connections we have already created. To create a new one, select New. Refresh will try to find any available servers. In our case, it didn't find anything. Type in the server name and select your authentication method. We choose SQL Server and enter the username and password. If you plan to run this automatically, select the Save My Password checkbox to avoid typing it in every time. Now we select the database name we created in an earlier video, Test SSIS, then click on Test Connection. The connection succeeded. Click OK. Click OK again. You should see your connection now. Click OK. Next, we add the SQL statement to create a table based on our CSV file. Click the 3 ellipses and enter in the SQL statement. Click OK. Then click OK again. Let's change the name to Create Table. Click OK. We want to test the SQL statement task only, so we disable the FTP task button. Right-click on the task, then select Disable from the drop-down menu. The task should turn gray to indicate it is disabled now. Click on the Start button at the top and wait for the job to finish. When it is finished, you should see a blue bar in the middle. Click here or hit the square Stop button at the top. There are no errors in the debug output. We checked the database and now we can see the table we just created. It should be empty for now. To move the data from the CSV file to the database table, select a new data flow task and drag it over to the form. Right-click and select Edit. You should be in the second tab or data flow form now, with that tab selected. Go to Other Sources and select the flat file source, then drag it over. Rename it to CSV file and edit the task. Under Connection Manager, click New. We rename it to CSV file connection, then browse for our file below. Change .txt to .csv and select our temp.csv file, then hit Open. The file name should be showing with the full path. In our case, the first column contains the headers, so we select that checkbox. Everything else looks okay. Select Columns next. This looks like our data. Click on Advanced now. We can change the data types manually here or click on Suggest Types. We want to set age and income to one of the integer types. but we'll leave the string types to this selection. Now, click on Preview. Looks fine, so click on OK. Click on OK again to get back to the form. We add an OLADB destination, connecting the flow using the arrows. This means when one task is finished, the other will start in serial mode. We also changed the name to temp table. Click on Edit. We add the same connection manager as we used earlier to create the table. This time, we will be inserting data into that table. Select the table, then click on Mappings. This shows us the source column from the file and destination column from the table, and how they relate to each other. In our case, the names match, so it is easier for the task to find the relationships. Click OK. You can also change the name by clicking on it inside the task. We changed it to Employee Table. We are finished with the data flow, so now we go back to the Control Flow tab or form. We only want to test the data flow task, so we disable the Create Table task and hit Start again. When it is finished, we go back to the database and run a select statement on the table, and now we can see all 5 records were inserted. Okay, that's all we have for today. Thank you for watching our video. As always, questions and comments are welcome. See you next time.